A ripple of hushed tones ran through the delegation chamber, a stark contrast to the usual meticulous order of the Xylari collective. Their sleek, elongated forms shifted with unease, their iridescent eyes darting across holographic displays, the subject of their disquiet, ancient human war records. "Impossible," chirped a Xylari biospecialist, its mandibles clicking in consternation. "These accounts of strength, endurance, they contradict anatomical assessments. A carbon-based biped of such limited stature shouldn't possess this capacity." "Agreed," echoed a strategist, its tendrils spiraling thoughtfully. Yet the archives detail a tenacity disproportionate to their physiology. An evolutionary anomaly, perhaps? They had reached out to the humans centuries after the war. The devastation wrought between the two species was immense. Yet time had healed wounds, fostering cautious cooperation in the galactic community. Still, the enigma of human might lingered in the Xylari archives, a lingering curiosity now blooming into necessity. Whispers turned into decisive action. A delegation was assembled, renowned geneticists, physiologists, and a hint of military strategists cloaked in scientific titles. Their destination? Earth. Their objective? To solve the riddle of human strength, an objective that could ripple through the galactic balance of power. On a dusty landing pad overlooking a sprawling human metropolis, they found their answer in the form of a lone figure. Alex was unassuming, with the compact build of a lifelong laborer and eyes that held far more weariness than his youthful age suggested. He was their carefully selected specimen, a microcosm of the human potential that fascinated the Xylari. Alex, initially bewildered, agreed to the experiments out of a blend of curiosity and the generous compensation offered. Of course, his consent form had omitted the more invasive procedures the Xylari were truly interested in. Their advanced technology probed him, mapping every muscle fiber, every cellular function. The results were baffling. By all accounts, he should have been remarkably unremarkable. Yet there was a flicker of interest when they delved into his genetic code, a dormant sequence that seemed out of place, like an unfinished symphony. The Xylari called it the Titan gene. Everything hinged on it. Alex awoke with a jolt in the sterile confines of the Xylari research vessel. Each breath was a ragged gasp, every muscle screaming in protest. Disorientation swirled in his head as fragments of memory flickered like a malfunctioning holodisplay. A flurry of injections, the cool press of alien technology against his flesh, and an insistent voice coiling through his mind in the Xylari's strange, clicking tongue. "Activation protocol successful," a voice chimed in Xylari, followed by a series of satisfied clicks. "The Titan gene expresses as hypothesized." The words meant little to Alex, but his gut clenched with a sense of unease. He sat up slowly, the simple movement sending fresh waves of agony through his body. With a surge of defiant will, he forced himself to his feet, a shaky and unsteady process. As he glanced down, a gasp tore from his throat. His body had transformed. Where once was leanness, now bulged ropes of corded muscle. His skin seemed stretched taut over the newly sculpted physique, every fiber outlined in sharp relief. Yet even as his pulse hammered in shock and disbelief, an echo of raw power rippled beneath his skin. "Don't worry, human," the Xylari biospecialist assured, mistaking his gasp for fear. "The changes are temporary, a catalyst to assess the full potential of the gene." Alex said nothing, the weight of the situation settling heavy upon him. Test subject, lab rat. He'd read between the lines of the deceptively harmless consent forms, but the reality of their experiments hit him harder than any physical blow. Anger sparked within him, mingling with the strange new exhilaration coursing through his enhanced form. "What's next?" he asked, his voice a rough rasp. The Xylari exchanged satisfied looks. It had begun. Alex was their key, their tool to unravel the secret of human strength that had defied them for so long. He would endure simulations, controlled stress tests, and endless physical evaluations. With each exertion they expected answers, the blossoming of the potential they saw hidden within human DNA. And Alex, fueled by a cocktail of fear, rage, and a strange sense of purpose, would give them what they wanted. He would show them exactly what humans were capable of. The initial tests were brutal. They subjected Alex to simulations of extreme environments, his enhanced body pushed to the limits of endurance in searing deserts, frigid wastelands, and crushing atmospheric depths. His heart thundered, his muscles burned, but his will was an unyielding steel cable. Something had changed within him, not just physically. A primal tenacity had taken root in his soul. The Xylari researchers were astounded. His stats exceeded anything theoretically possible for a being of his origin, triggering a flurry of excited clicks and chirps. Yet amidst their scientific triumph, a ripple of unease spread through the delegation. This power, it was both alluring and unsettling. "We must proceed cautiously," urged a senior researcher. "The potential for misuse is evident." "Precautions will be taken," the head strategist assured, his tendrils twitching in barely contained anticipation. "Besides, a controlled asset is far more valuable to the collective than any unsolved mystery." With a newfound ruthlessness, they escalated the experiments. Combat simulations pitted Alex against fierce holographic projections, his instincts adapting and sharpening with startling speed. Strategy sims tested his tactical acumen, the results causing more than one Xylari strategist to reassess outdated galactic military doctrines. Even when pushed to collapse, when his body screamed in protest, he'd rise again the next day, stronger, faster, seemingly unbreakable. Alex began to understand not just what the aliens wanted from him, but what they feared. The Titan gene, it seemed, wasn't just a key to superhuman strength, it was a potential Pandora's box. In the wrong hands, it could reshape the galactic order. His determination hardened. He wouldn't be their weapon, their scientific breakthrough to be exploited. The Xylari had underestimated one key element of human psychology, or perhaps it was another facet of the mysterious gene: defiance. Under the guise of cooperation, he began to analyze their facility, its layout, weaknesses, security protocols. It was a long shot, a plan so desperate it bordered on ridiculous, but he clung to it, a beacon of hope in this alien prison. The escape was born out of desperation and meticulous timing. Alex, under pretense of a routine physical assessment, chose his moment. Enhanced senses detected the subtle shift change pattern. His heightened strategic mind calculated the seconds before the security team rotated. With explosive force, he burst from the examination room. Alarm shrieked, a discordant symphony against the pounding of his own heart. The Xylari researchers scattered in his wake, surprised and disoriented. This wasn't their docile test subject. This was a warrior, a whirlwind of honed muscle and fury tearing through the once sterile corridors of the vessel. Guards converged, their energy weapons a shimmering net promising pain, perhaps death. Alex didn't care. Fear had been replaced by a primal drive, a fierce hunger for freedom that overrode any concept of self-preservation. He dodged a blast, his newfound agility twisting his body into an impossible angle. Grappling a guard, he used its body as a shield against another's fire, the alien screeching in agony. The ship became a chaotic battleground, Alex's fists blurring against the Xylari's sleek forms. He was a force of nature, raw and unleashed. His strength was monstrous, each blow carrying the weight of centuries of human struggle and resilience. Yet he fought not with hate, but with a steely determination to survive, to escape, to warn his own kind. By the time reinforcements arrived, he was already halfway to a hangar, leaving a trail of unconscious Xylari in his wake. A single shuttle sat in readiness, likely primed for a supply run. Alex didn't hesitate. Punching in a frantic override sequence, he blasted off the vessel moments before the security cordon sealed around the departure bay. Hurtling through space, Alex slumped back in the pilot's seat, gasping for breath. His body trembled, a mixture of exertion and release. He'd escaped, but the Xylari wouldn't give up easily. The chase would begin soon, and he held a terrible secret, a secret that could change the course of human destiny. The shuttle was a relic, a slow-moving target in the vastness of space. Alex had managed to randomize his trajectory, scrambling any basic pursuit algorithms, but the Xylari were persistent. Their probes pinged the surrounding sectors, narrowing the search field with chilling efficiency. He was running out of time. With shaking, still bruised fingers, he tapped in the shuttle's communication systems. His gamble was a reckless one, to broadcast in the clear, hoping a human vessel would intercept his frantic warnings. It was the interstellar equivalent of shouting into a hurricane, but desperation left him little choice. "Xylari vessel, genetic experiments, strength, Titan gene," he managed to stammer out, adrenaline making his voice a hoarse whisper. "They're coming. They'll come back." Static filled his ears, a relentless buzz that echoed the chaotic pounding of his heart. Please, he thought fiercely. Anyone. Someone. Then a voice cut through the distortion, crisp and demanding. Identify yourself and your location immediately. Hope flickered anew. Alex relayed his coordinates and the barest outline of his ordeal, adrenaline fueling his words. He described the Xylari vessel, the urgency of his situation, the potential threat his very existence now presented to Earth. The reply was immediate, its gravity sinking into his weary bones. Understood. Hold your position. A task force is en route. Alex slumped back, spent. He'd done what he could. His warnings had been sent out into the void. Now all he could do was wait and pray for his own kind to arrive before the Xylari caught up. The rest was out of his hands. Waiting was agony. Alex drifted in and out of fitful sleep, haunted by nightmares of the Xylari research lab and the echoes of desperate battle. Every creak of the shuttle, every flicker on his rudimentary sensor screen made him jolt awake, muscles tense, ready to fight again. Time warped into a grotesque blur. Then, like a beacon cutting through the gloom, 3 sleek warships materialized in the void, their human insignia blazing a defiant promise against the cold backdrop of the stars. The relief was a tidal wave crashing through Alex's battered body, swiftly replaced by trepidation. He'd escaped the Xylari only to walk straight into a different kind of scrutiny. Earth authorities would want answers, details of the alien's technology, the full extent of the threat revealed by his existence. Trust wouldn't come easily. With brisk efficiency, he was transferred onto the flagship, a flurry of medical scans and urgent debriefings following him like an entourage. The ship crackled with a contained energy, preparation for an impending clash reverberating throughout its hull. They'll be here soon, Alex warned, his voice still rough. He recounted the Xylari's relentless pursuit, the potential within the Titan gene, his fear echoing in the tense silence of the tactical room. The senior officers absorbed his words, grim expressions etching their faces. Then, a flicker of something like respect bloomed in their eyes. They recognized Defiance when they saw it. "We'll be ready," the fleet admiral declared, her voice steady and resolute. "And we're not going to let those Xylari bastards lay a finger on our world again." A strange sense of belonging washed over Alex. Despite everything, they were still his. He was human, part of this stubborn, resilient species that had clawed its way back from the brink of interstellar war. Maybe his ordeal, the Titan gene, wasn't just a threat. It could be a turning point. The Xylari arrived not with a vanguard, but with their full scientific delegation vessel, a bristling behemoth that dwarfed the human fleet. Alex, observing from the flagship's bridge, felt his newly enhanced senses thrum with a mix of awe and dread. He'd witnessed the Xylari's scientific prowess. Now he watched their military might materialize before him. At first, it seemed like a standoff. The Xylari demanded his return, citing scientific protocols, broken agreements. The humans refused with icy firmness. Earth was under their protection, and so were its citizens. What started as coldly veiled threats escalated into a war of words across the vast silence of space. But the Xylari hadn't come all this way just to argue. Alex, his instincts honed by their experiments, felt the shift before the sensors did, a ripple beneath the calm facade. They were going to act. The first strike wasn't a flashy show of raw firepower. Instead, it was a wave of insidious energy, a weaponized pulse that targeted the human ship's systems, plunging them into chaos. Lights flickered and died, comms crackled into static, and on the display, friendly icons winked into oblivion as vital systems shut down. Panic flared across the bridge, yet there was an undercurrent of grim determination, a hard-earned resilience forged in the fires of the old war. Backup procedures roared into life, auxiliary power sources hummed, human ingenuity finding cracks in the darkness the Xylari had forced upon them. "Alex," the Admiral's voice cut through the din, "that gene of yours, does it give you an edge? Something the Xylari don't know?" He knew immediately what she was asking. I think so. I can sense their technology, the energy flows before they activate," he admitted. It was another terrifying facet of his transformation. "Then you're our early warning system," she declared without hesitation. "Let's use their strength against them." Alex wasn't a soldier. He'd never held a weapon more advanced than a construction tool. But trapped in the heart of the starship battle, surrounded by the grim faces of the men and women risking their lives, his survival instinct screamed into overdrive. This gene, this legacy, it was a tool, a weapon, just like the ones the Xylari wielded. He focused, tuning out the shouts and rumble of explosions, diving into the chaotic symphony of energy that surged around them. The Xylari pulsed with an interconnected rhythm, their technology an extension of themselves. He sought out anomalies, dissonant notes, the precursors of attack. "Targeting array on their port flank, powering up," he barked out, his voice surprisingly steady despite the pounding of his heart. "Main drive building energy. They're gonna jump." His warnings were raw and unfiltered, but they bought precious seconds. Weapons realigned, bracing for the onslaught. The humans, blinded by the Xylari's initial crippling strike, were back in the fight, fueled by Alex's uncanny perception. The battle raged across the void, a clash of wills and technology. The Xylari, surprised by the humans' recovery, pressed their advantage, their weapons flaring in the cosmic darkness. And Alex was at the center of it, a conduit of energy, a living shield against their attacks. With each surge he sensed, each volley he helped deflect, the awe of the crew around him grew. He had become something more than a science experiment, more than an anomaly. He was their edge. But the cost was high. Each premonition brought a wave of agony crashing through his enhanced frame. His muscles spasmed, his vision blurred, and his mind throbbed in a relentless rhythm of pain. Yet he gritted his teeth and pushed, driven by the knowledge that lives depended on his endurance. The Xylari strategy shifted, their frustration a tangible pulse in the fabric of energy Alex waded through. They began targeting him directly, not with conventional weapons, but with pulses meant to overload the very gene that made him both their obsession and their downfall. It was a wave of agony unlike anything he'd ever felt. He gasped as his enhanced muscles knotted and spasmed, his vision flashing white-hot. He fell to his knees, barely able to stifle a scream, yet he clung to his senses with the tattered remnants of his will. "Main shield's falling! Critical systems offline!" Reports crackled through the bridge, mirroring the devastation wreaked within Alex's body. The Admiral's face held a grim mask of determination. A desperate plan formed in Alex's pain-fogged mind. If they were targeting him, overloading his system, it might be the key to breaking the stalemate. "Target me," he choked out between ragged breaths. "Focus your fire, overload it all." The Admiral hesitated, the weight of the decision resting heavily on her shoulders, then nodded with chilling resolve. "Tactical, adjust targeting vectors. All available firepower to Alex's position." The ship shuddered as weapons realigned, a death sentence transformed into a desperate gambit. Alex braced for the onslaught, his body a conduit for a storm of destructive energy that even the Xylari hadn't anticipated. Pain became a blinding sun, banishing all thought and sensation. And then, with a surge that felt like his very being was unraveling, it peaked and broke. When he came back to awareness, ragged breaths echoing in the silence, he was sprawled amidst a circle of shocked faces. The Xylari ship flickered, its external systems flaring with malfunctioning bursts, then winked out. Darkness swallowed the alien behemoth, not the darkness of defeat, but a complete power failure. The surge, focused and amplified by human weapons, had wreaked havoc within their delicate systems, overloading them beyond repair. They were crippled. Retreat was swift and graceless, the once mighty Xylari delegation fleeing like wounded prey. The human fleet limped back towards Earth, the aftermath of the battle leaving an unsettling echo in their wake. Alex was a wreck, his enhanced body ravaged by the overload, every moment filled with the echo of his ordeal. But they'd won. Earth was safe. His return wasn't the fanfare a hero might receive. Isolated in a medical bay, he was surrounded not by celebration, but by scientists and military strategists, their eyes filled with a mix of awe, caution, and a calculating glint he found deeply unsettling. The Titan gene, it seemed, wasn't just a scientific curiosity or a wartime advantage. It was the potential for a new arms race with humanity at the forefront. They spoke in low tones of replication, of controlled activation, of creating an army of enhanced super soldiers. Fear clawed at his insides. He'd witnessed what ambition in the name of science could do, the lengths the Xylari had gone to, and now his own people were gazing down that same treacherous path. He closed his eyes, the weight of the world settling on his still trembling shoulders. "No," he murmured at first, then louder, his voice gaining strength with every word. "No, never again. It almost destroyed me. It'll destroy us all." The room fell silent. He opened his eyes, meeting the calculating stares head-on. Alex, the laborer, the science experiment, became something far more powerful in that moment. "I won't let you create more weapons," he declared. "You want to study it, understand it, that's fine. But using people, turning the galaxy into another war zone? That stops here." His words sparked a debate that raged long into the night. Scientists argued for knowledge, military leaders for security, But Alex held firm. His first-hand experience with the Xylari and his own near destruction a more convincing argument than any theoretical debate. Finally, as dawn painted the first rays through the viewport, a weary agreement was reached. The project would shift to study, to understanding the limits and the dangers, not to weaponization. The Titan gene would be a shield, not a sword. Alex slumped back, exhausted physically and mentally, but a sense of purpose bloomed within him. He was no soldier, no scientist, but a survivor, a human who stood at a critical point in history. His existence would forever reshape his kind, and this time, he would make damn sure the change was for the better.